Here.
Mr. Mercado here. Mr. Dawson.
Present.
Mrs. Downs. Mr. Caderas. Mr. Kurtz.
Here.
Mr. Natale. Mr. Strollo. Mr. Disco. Here. Ms. Blake. Mr. Hilsinger. Mr. Vermont. What is the deal? The last two I butchered.
It's the German version.
I'm German.
All right, we have a quorum. Will the commission public please join me in the pledge of allegiance?
It doesn't come off the tongue.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first order of business tonight is special permit application of Timothy Daniel Penton and Erica Ann Francis. Can we hear the call for that, please?
Motion to find referral pursuant.
No, where's the call?
Application for a special permit on behalf of Timothy Daniel Penton and Erica Ann Francis, owners. Applicant is for construction of accessory apartment pursuant to section 30-5 of the zoning regulations. Property located at 660 Higgin Road, Assessors Map 70, Lot 82.
Thank you. And representing the applicant tonight?
I'm Timothy Penton,
And your address, please?
660 Higgins Road.
Okay. Just, you tell brief, is this the one with the garage? You're taking over the garage?
Yep, we're looking to renovate our existing garage, turn it into an in-law apartment, and then add garage space in behind the house.
Okay. And does this meet the regulations of
That's correct.
whatever? Okay. Anyone from the commission wishing to ask questions? Anyone from the public wishing to ask questions on this? No? Okay. I'll be closing the public hearing. Thank you. Number 2, application of special permit on behalf of William Papoy Jr. And could we hear the call for that, please?
Application for special permit on behalf of William Pepoy Jr. and Catherine Pepoy, applicants and owners. A. Ralph Carbo, agent. Application is for construction of accessory apartment pursuant to section 30-5 of the zoning regulations. Property located at 181 North Brooksville, Assessors Map 78, Lot 81, Zone C3.
Thank you. And representing the applicant for this one. Name
Yes,
and
good
address, please.
evening, Commissioner Corbo from Corbo Associates Incorporated. I'm a builder developer out of Roxbury, Connecticut, and I have the honor tonight to help my niece and her husband, Catherine and Bill Petboy, on their application for an accessory apartment. And we have prepared our application, and I've submitted plans with both the site plan showing conformity with all of the elements under 30. 1 and 6, and I have a blow-up map as well.
Yeah, we have pretty detailed plans in all of our pack. I think we all got them, right?
So on it, we have met all of the requirements. It is 905 square feet, which is just under the maximum of 950 square feet. It meets the requirements for a common door between the existing home and the new addition. And it has its own separate entry door. And the idea here is that Katie's mom, my sister, will be moving into the house to enjoy the home with her daughter and son-in-law and their pets. So I'm here to answer any questions you may have about your plan, and I have a larger map if we need to clarify any
Okay.
of that.
Mr. Mercado.
I have more of a question to Mike. There's a letter from Chespercott saying, I know there's no subdivision or anything. It's just something if the sewer goes bad, then they have to, if the septic goes bad, they have to hook the sewers. If it's good enough for now, why would that be a problem? Why can't they fix the septic? Does this go into the deed or anything, or?
No, it doesn't go into the deed, but it under the health code or WPCA ordinance, if you have a property that is served by on-site septic system and the septic system fails, then they're supposed to connect to public sewer if public sewer is available.
So they have
How-
no way to fix what they have and
Well-
move on?
Well, they could ask for a request for WPCA to say, hey, can we maintain the existing septic system or repair it? So, I mean, I understand your concern.
Yeah, it's like we're getting too pushy with this stuff.
Agreed. I think, it's not a health code issue in the sense that's a WPCA standards, and if WPCA concerns should the septic system fail, and that's a should, so.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to address, I'm sorry.
Mr. Bowman?
Well, because this can be sewered, it doesn't need the 100% additional property for, therefore, it could be required to be hooked up. I mean, it's recommended. I don't think they should have commented on this, if you want to know the truth.
I mean, that's what I
I-
mean. It's
yeah,
like
but
stepping
I
over the
agree.
bounds here.
I agree with that 100%, because it does have the ability to be sewered, but
Well, that's.
I mean, they might want to do that anyways. I don't know, but
That's not a planning and zoning issue anyway, is it? The hookup to the sewer system if the septic system fails? I don't think I've ever heard about that in 20 years of being here. It's not- Right? I don't think
it's
that's.
overstepping bounds. That's what I think it is. It's Chespercott overstepping what they should be doing.
Well, it's not that they're overstepping. They're supposed to do that, but it shouldn't be. Why would they comment to us? I mean, that's, I think the question is,
where you're.
we're going to approve it or not approve it, whether the system fails or doesn't fail. That's not our issue. That's a Chespercott issue.
Agreed. And the key is you have an application that's demonstrated compliance to your regulations. One way or another, there is a sewage disposal system, whether it's the sewer out in the road or the septic system in the property. So the toilets will flush. So I don't see an issue.
No, I agree. There is no issue.
Yeah, but our approval tonight, if we approve it tonight, as long as that stipulation is not there, it has nothing to do with what we approve.
Correct.
Good.
Okay. Any other commissioner members or questions? Anyone from the public wishing to speak on this? None? Okay. I'm going to close this public hearing. I'm also going to recess the public hearing and quickly vote on these two and let everyone get out of here. I wasn't going to do it at first, but it just seems appropriate with the question of Chespercott and whatever else here. So I'm going to recess
Thank
the
you for
public
your
hearing.
time.
I'm going to call to order the regular meeting for Monday, February 27, 2023. We've done all the quorum. I'm not going to do any of the minutes or the communications. We're just going to take these two. So we have two motions on the last two that we'll ever do this way again.
Yes, you do, Mr. Chairman. The first is a motion to approve application special permit on behalf of Timothy Daniel Penton and Erica Ann Francis, owners, applications for the construction of accessory apartment pursuant to 30-5 of the zoning regulations. Property located at 660 Higgins Road, Assessors Map 70, Lot 82. Approval is based on plans dated February 13th, 2023, provided by the applicant. Further, the Cheshire Planning and Zoning Commission finds the applicant has demonstrated compliance to Section 30-5 of the Cheshire zoning regulations.
Oh, Mr. Dawson, seconded by Mr. Mercado. Any discussion on this motion? No, this is the first one we did with the garage being taken over. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Motion carries unanimously. Do we have the second one, please?
A motion to approve application special permit on behalf of William Pepe Jr. and Catherine Pepe, applicants, owners, Ralph Corbo, agent. Applications for the construction of an accessory apartment pursuant to Section 30-5 of the zoning regulations. The property located at 181 North Brooksville, Assessors Map 78, Lot 81, Zone C3. Approvals based on plans titled Pepe Residence prepared by Birch Hollow Design with a revision date of January 20th, 2023. Further, the Cheshire Planning and Zoning Commission finds the applicant has demonstrated compliance to Section 35 of the Cheshire zoning regulations.
Move staff wording.
Move Mr. Bowman, second by Mr. Mercado. Any discussion on this motion? Sensing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. The final one that we're going to be done this way. The rest of them are done administratively. Yeah, well, hopefully it works out that way. Yes. Yes. Now I'm going to recess the regular meeting and open back up our public hearing. With our public hearing, I'm going to take the liberty to take 6, 7, and 8 first, please. Can we hear the call for 6, 7, and 8?
Application for approval of interchange special development project on behalf of TriStar Development LLC and Miller Napolitano Wolf LLC, applicant and owners. Applicant is requesting an approval of interchange special development project for a mixed-use development including commercial, retail, and restaurants locating at 2061 Highland Ave and adjacent parcels 1973, 1989 Highland Ave. Assessors map 4, lot 4, 7, and 9, map 3, parcels 58. See lots 5 and 6 on map 4871, filled in Town's Clerk's Office, Zone ICSDD. 7, application for special permit on behalf of TriStar Development LLC and Miller Napolitano Wolf LLC, applicant and owners. Applicant is requesting special permit pursuant to section 50 and 45B5 of the zoning regulations for mixed-use development, including commercial, retail, and restaurants located at 2061 Highland Ave and adjacent parcels 1973, 1989 Highland Ave. Assessors map 4, lot 4, 7, and 9, map 3, parcels 58. See lots 5 and 6 on map 4871, filled in Town's Clerk's Office, Zone ICSDD. 8, application for earth removal, filling, and regrading permit on behalf of TriStar Development LLC and Miller Napolitano Wolf LLC, applicants and owners. Applicant is requesting permit pursuant to section 25 of zoning regulations for earth removal, filling, or regrading for property located at 2061 Highland Ave and adjacent parcels 1973, 1989 Highland Ave. Assessors map 4, lot 4, 7, 9, map 3, parcel 58. See lots 5 and 6 on map 4871, filed in Town Clerk's Office, zoned ICSDD.
Thank you. Mr. Bowman? Yes. Thank you. Representing the applicant tonight?
For the record, my name is Anthony Fazzone. I'm an attorney here in Cheshire with a firm of Fazzone, Ryan, and Ricciuti, representing the applicant and owners. At the outset, I would note as the call of the meeting, this is an application for a special development project in the interchange zone. And actually, it's been rezoned to interchange special design district. And I would like to ask the commission to take official notice of the files and record when the zone change was approved and the subdivision was approved. And those were by actions of the commission on July 22nd, 2019 was the first zone change. The special regulations that are in effect and the zoning regulations themselves call for approval of a special development project. It's also considered a special permit under your regulations. At the time of the zone change to ICSDD, a special development plan was approved. Copies of that have been resubmitted as we've gone along with the development of these parcels. The application tonight is consistent with the special development plan, specifically the areas of the subdivision, lots 5 and 6, are called out in the special development plan to be commercial, retail, and restaurants. And that's basically the uses that are before you this evening for the overall project. There are 2 separate aquifers that touch small portions of the two parcels, lot 5 and 6. On the north end, there's a small portion of a Southington aquifer. It's their well number 2. We have notified the Southington Water Department in accordance with the state statutes. I filed in the Planning and Zoning Office today copies of the letters and the certified mail return receipt requested, signed by the Southington Water Department. You'll see on the presentation of the maps, it's a small corner in the north easternmost section of this property. None of the uses that are proposed for that, which is a restaurant and retail, those are not prohibited uses under your Aquifer Protection Act. It's odd that it's Southington's water well, but just like when you do these for the Regional Water Authority, because it's on Cheshire property, it's under your jurisdiction to oversee that none of these activities are prohibited practices in the aquifer. Similarly, on the south end of the property in the southeast corner, there's a very small portion of lot 5 that, on lot 6 rather, that is over the aquifer. There is no building activity on that portion. That'll be landscaped. Regardless of that, the Regional Water Authority by statute is to be notified. They were notified by certified mail, return receipt requested. Copy of the letter and the signed receipt were also brought to the Planning and Zoning Office today to be added to the file. Whenever you have to do that with respect to an aquifer or watershed, you have to notify the Department of Public Health. Similarly, this afternoon, we dropped off in the office copies of the emails attaching the proper notifications to the Department of Public Health, one for the Southington aquifer and one for the Cheshire aquifer. When we got the zone change in the special development plan, the WPCA granted feasibility approval. Since that time, they've granted final design and an award of capacity. And as late as January, at the WPCA's January meeting, the applicant appeared and went over and confirmed the allocations, the breakdown of the allocation that's been approved, and that includes the projects that are before you this evening. With that, I would like to call on Darren Overton to go over the project itself and the engineering.
Good evening for the record. Darren Overton from SLR Consulting. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of Connecticut, and I was the primary design engineer for the site plans on the project. I have up before you a master plan, which I think most, if not all of you, are familiar with. This was the one that we had most recently updated as part of the Lot 3 application. So Lot 3 and Lot 7 are applications that you've seen before. We're in tonight for an application associated mainly with Lot 5. This is the master plan configuration that was originally approved for Lot 5, showing the relationship lots 4, 5, and 6. It also shows the relationship of 2 lots that previously were not part of the re-subdivision or the master planning that are now included as part of the project. And we're here before you with a more comprehensive application for the commercial and retail fronting on Route 10 that was considered for Lot 5, which now combines those two other small frontage lots on Route 10, as well as Lot 6. And then if you looked closely at our plans, you might have seen there is a small land swap that's associated with Lot 4. We're actually utilizing a portion of Lot 4 for the access drive into the back, mainly for the service area. And then we're going to actually be giving part of Lot 5 back to Lot 4 as a kind of a balance to maintain the size of that lot as well. I have an existing aerial that shows some of the existing conditions. I'll go over those and then go over the proposed development and some of the stormwater management. So this is a blow up of the lot, and I've turned north. On that map, north was straight up, and north is to the right on this map. So Route 10, as I'm sure you're all aware, runs north-south. So this is Lot 5, again, those two lots, and Lot 6, and the relationship of Lot 4. And if you can see the aerial, I know it's not all that big, but for the most part, the lot is all wooded. There is some development associated with the frontage lots here, also an existing home along the northern part of the property. And then there's some prior disturbance as part of some of the previous construction work that was done in and around this property. The property has a rolling topography. There's a ridge that runs north-south through the middle of it. It's about 300 feet back off of Route 10. When you're driving up Route 10, you don't really notice it, but if you look at the topo maps, you'll see that there's a ridge that comes up there. We have some relief, and everything pretty much drains in a westerly direction toward the 10 Mile River. The high point at the site is about elevation 200, and then the low point, as you can imagine, is down along the 10 Mile River corridor along our northern boundary down to about an elevation of 122. So we've got about 80 feet, 78 feet of relief across the entire site if you look at the extremes. But for the most part, we're not touching the lower part of the site down near the river. We've preserved a fairly large corridor along there to provide a buffer to the river. While we are taking down the high point, that 200 elevation, our pad elevation is going to be around 150, 160 range. And then our stormwater discharge out in the back is down around 140. So when we're done, there's going to be less relief than what was there before, mainly because we're taking down that high point, that ridge in the middle to create the pad for the development. There were wetlands delineated along the 10 Mile River, and we have been before the Wetlands Commission to review what little impacts we did have down near the river. But as I mentioned, we did maintain a fairly large buffer of the natural vegetation that was there. So a pretty large, mature wooded buffer along the river. So I have a colored rendering of the site plan that we submitted as part of the application. As Anthony mentioned, this is an interchange special development district application. So it's a proposed mixed use of commercial, retail, and restaurant space. There's 136,360 total square feet of building area that's proposed. We've looked at a parking analysis based on a retail use for everything. We don't know exactly what the final mix of tenants' space is going to be. We've looked at what we thought was generally a worst case scenario under the regulations, which is one space for every 200 square feet. That requires about 682 spaces. We've proposed 683. You'll also see there's accessible spaces along there. While the regulation requires 2%, which is 14 spaces, we've actually provided 18. And mainly that's because in distributing the parking around the site to the out parcels, as well as along the length of the main building, we wanted to have those accessible spaces close to the front door and well distributed around the site. So we do have more than what's required by the ADA standards. There's two proposed access roads out to the south to Stonebridge Court. Again, north is to the right on this plan. So there's two access drives, one to the rear of the main building, which is mainly intended to provide service area to the back of the main commercial and retail space. We also have another one that lines up with the main driveway on Lot 1, which is just south of the project. And we have Stonebridge Court that runs along the southern perimeter of the Lot 5 development. We also have a proposed intersection near the northern boundary of the property. That's going to be a signalized intersection. That was part of the OSTA permitting that we had done previously, and was also part of the DOT encroachment permit, which we've achieved for the project. As part of the expansion of the project with the two lots out front, we've also added a right in, right out between the intersection with Route 10 and Stonebridge Court and the full access drive to the north that's signalized. So that provides a little bit better traffic distribution into the southern portion of the site. So we have a number of different access points where people can access the property, regardless of which direction they're coming from. We anticipate the majority of them are going to be coming from the interchanges on 691, and we do have that main signalized intersection with Stonebridge Court that we expect will distribute most of the traffic into the site. But Dave Sullivan is here from our office who will explain more to you about the traffic in a few minutes, and he did prepare a summary letter of the traffic as part of our application. The project is going to be served by public water and sewer. As Anthony mentioned, we do have WPCA approval. We have extended water infrastructure all through the site to serve the project, which has been coordinated with both Regional Water Authority and the Southington Water Department. Water loops through the site. We provided hydrants based on the typical spacing that the Cheshire regulations require. We do have a review letter from the Cheshire Fire Department where we will finalize the locations with them. They did ask for a couple hydrants in the back, which we're certainly willing to do. Some key boxes and some fire lanes to be designated, and certainly all things that we would coordinate with the fire department and get on the final plans. Quickly, I'll just go over stormwater management and the S&E plan. So for stormwater management, similar analysis to what we've done on all the other projects here. As part of the original overall master plan and subdivision of the project, we did look at a big picture watershed analysis of the entire 10 Mile River watershed as it relates to this site and as it relates to the Quinnipiac River, which it discharges to a little over, I think it's a quarter mile or a third of a mile further north from the site. In that larger study, we looked at DEP criteria, the town criteria, and it's a wide range that incorporates, watersheds of other towns as well. Based on the DEP criteria, we made a determination that detention wouldn't be necessary. It'd actually be a detriment if we provided that and could potentially cause higher downstream flows, peak flows. So we have no detention proposed on this, but we do have on the western side of the site a relatively large water quality basin. As you might remember from prior applications and soil testing we've done on site, soils are very sandy. We expect there to be a relatively high level of infiltration for the stormwater management for filtering and base flow to be provided to the 10 Mile River. We have a typical pipe and catch basin collection system throughout the paved areas and collecting the roof leaders. That's designed for a 10-year storm. Because we aren't providing detention, our truck line is designed to handle a 100-year storm, and our discharges are designed with erosion protection for up to a 100-year storm as well. Overflow from the basin flows into the town drainage system that has a relatively large riprap plunge pool behind to the west of this property, which then overflows to the 10 Mile River. We did provide a full stormwater report as part of this, which outlines what I'm summarizing here. As far as water quality, we have catch basins with sumps. We have a hydrodynamic separator. We have a vegetated water quality basin, which will filter the stormwater further and then discharge to the 10 Mile River. Our S&E plan is pretty straightforward. We have perimeter controls around the entire perimeter of the site to control sediment from running off toward the river. On a larger scale, we have sediment traps in a sediment basin to collect during larger storm events. Water is diverted into those basins where the sediment can filter out and settle before it overflows to the 10 Mile River. We have designated stockpile areas and construction entrance pads, and that's all included on our erosion and sediment control plan. So at this point, that concludes my summary of the existing conditions as well as what's proposed for the project. If there are no questions for me at the moment, I'd be happy to hand this over to Dave Sullivan to give you a summary of the traffic analysis.
Anybody, commission members?
Oh, okay, sorry. Anthony says next up is the presentation by the architect. Any questions on the engineering at this point?
At this point, I don't think we have any. So, Woody, nothing? No.
I'm not going anywhere, so if you have them later, I'll
All
be.
right, perfect.
Thank you.
Before I call Mr. Scott up to go over the architecture, and we're taking him out of order, I think I mentioned that he's from Boston. He's driven down and he's going to be driving back to Boston. So we'd like to get him to go through his stuff. In terms of wetlands, we did originally with respect to the subdivision and Lot 3 get wetlands approvals, and those are all a matter of record. And with respect to the subdivision and the change to the interchange zone, that's part of those files. And as a precaution, we went back to the Wetlands Commission on this application for a determination, and they determined that there is no additional wetlands activity and that therefore a wetlands application was not necessary. And I believe that's found its way into the file here. When we get Darren back up here, he'll talk a little bit about the grading and the waivers that we've requested with respect. This is a large site, more than 5 acres will be opened at any one time. It's a little bit unusual in that most of the grading is up against non-residential properties. So, and there's no large cut, but we have asked for waivers in certain areas. With that, I'd like to call on Tom Scott. He's the architect on the project, and to go over the plans and the layout and the architecture.
Good evening. My name is Tom Scott. I'm the project architect for Scott Griffin Architects. Our office is actually at 880 Main Street in Waltham, Massachusetts. So it's a little bit of a drive, and I appreciate you taking me out of order this evening so that hopefully I can beat the snow home. So I do have smaller versions of the drawings. Do you have them?
Are they the same as we have up here?
Yes.
Yeah, we all
I
should
think
have
that's what we
the,
got
Okay,
last
okay,
thing, yeah.
then you're good.
Can we get one copy up here? One guy, 2 copies, sir.
No problem. Yeah, thanks. Okay. Okay, thank you again. So I'll just briefly run through the architecture and where we stand with the design concept right now. The image that's up on the easel right there, I guess I should take this thing off.
Yeah, it detaches. You can, yeah, there you go.
Out in front here.
Sure.
So the image that's out in front here is the arrival, sense of arrival at Route 10. As you drive into the site, we have a monument sign that would kind of identify the name of the center, some materials that kind of indicating what materials we may again see on the buildings as we arrive at the site. We also added a pylon sign, which will be a sign that'll help identify all of the tenants in the center. The center, as you are aware, is pretty long, and it's actually anchored at either end by what we hope to be restaurant spaces. The restaurant spaces will have widened sidewalks so that we can have some outdoor dining in those areas. So this would be the restaurant on the far left or the south end of the site. This is a vision of that. This would be the north end of the site. Again, hopefully we'll have 1 or possibly 2 restaurants with outdoor dining. On the side, we'd have some trellis elements, umbrella tables, planters. These would be protective type planters to help separate the pedestrian area from the drive lanes. We're also planning pretty wide landscaped areas along the sidewalk edges, again, to help create a little bit of a buffer between the pedestrian spaces and the drive aisles. In the center of the the project, there is anticipated a grocer. The grocer's good-sized grocer. We don't know who that is yet, but adjacent to the grocer, we're hoping to have some outdoor space that could be used for, again, outdoor dining, possibly some community venues. And again, that will flow into and around and connect with the other pedestrian spaces along the front facade of the center. Then we've got a couple of boards that identify some of the materials. The architecture itself, we've kind of looked around town. We understand it's a farming community. There's a lot of historical architecture in the town, a lot of colonial architecture, but I think our leaning is towards a kind of a modern farm style with a simple look to it. So a lot of the elements will have gable shapes, dormers, possibly some tin roof canopies in places, a lot of vertical siding, asphalt shingles on the roof, and then some signage that hopefully will be reflective of that farm style. So this board just talks a little bit about the materials. And then we've got kind of these elevation sheets. They were in the packet as well. This is kind of a long view of the entire center. This would be the grocer here, number 5 in the middle, restaurants on the end here, and possibly a restaurant here on this end. This would be the gap in the center where we'd have an outdoor dining community space. There could be events held there, maybe nighttime music or, those types of things, maybe art shows. But I think having that break in the long center is really going to be nice to create some outdoor gathering spaces that will make the center really feel like a village. So, and then the last sheet was the balance of the center, showing the grocer. The grocer is this piece right here. It's a pretty good size tenant. But one of the things we tried to do was have a lot of variation in the facades, some stepping in and out so that we don't have big blank walls, so it doesn't look like big box tenants. We're looking for something, again, that has a villagey feel to it. So a lot of the architecture is kind of movement in and out and up and down. So we've got a lot of gable elements that are taller, shorter, and we're just trying to create some variety so that, again, it has kind of a villagey feel. Creating visual interest across the whole facade. So that's basically it. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. Go ahead.
I just appreciate the thought you put into this design, that village farm look. It's really nice. I do like it a lot. Thank you. Fits right in.
I'm glad. Thank you.
Commission members, questions? I think I have a question for Darren, but I can do that
Darren.
afterwards. I did.
Okay.
When you saw the open thing, led me to a question about the driveway in the back, but
Okay.
I can wait a little while, so.
Okay. I'll leave a few of these up. Turn it back over to,
Thank you. Hope you make it back
yeah, thank
without the
you.
snow. I don't think it's snowing yet, so
Not yet.
you should be good.
Do you anticipate that this hearing will be kept open?
Yeah, we're not going to take all this
Okay.
and there's at least
Do-
probably 2.
Do you think there would be any need for Mr. Scott to come back?
You know what?
I
As
know-
of right now, probably not. But we can always, if we develop questions, maybe we could,
The-
relay it through the planning office and we get a hold of you.
The
if there's any-
materials were very thorough
Yeah.
and can see exactly, the three-dimensional.
You know what I do?
aspect.
I want to ask you the question, like in that outdoor area, what's in the back? like, does it prevent people to go back to where
Yeah,
the
so in
trucks
the-
are and stuff?
It's
Like,
interesting you asked that question because behind that is going to be the receiving area for
yeah,
the grocer. So we are going to have a very tall, probably a cedar style fence
so
and probably some trellis elements with some vines and things
so there's
like
no
that.
access area from
No,
there?
No,
Okay.
you would not be able to access to behind the building. It would be
And then
blocked off.
that driveway that's there, that's probably my question for Darren. Is that something the public will use, or that's just going to be trucks, emergency vehicles? That when I saw this, the space and the opening, and he talked about outdoor patio, I just, that just brought up that question.
So that access drive and back, while it's primarily for service and for tractor trailers to utilize the loading docks, et cetera, it's not going to be closed off to the public. It's going to be free for people to drive back there. But your only access is going to be to drive around both ends of the building, which isn't really convenient to get anywhere. So I don't know why the general public would use it.
When I saw the outdoor area and the open area, a lot of times if you can't park very close, you'll go around the back and park and walk through it. That's why fence, perfect, like it.
Yeah, I expected that space would be closed off.
Yeah. Okay.
I got a question for you.
Mr. Soma.
There's on the main, this main section of the building, there's no drive-throughs. It's all the drive-through restaurants will be towards the front.
That's right. All the pad buildings that are out front, there's, I think, 4 of them.
Right.
Those potentially could have drive-through elements, but none of the buildings along the main retail
Good,
portion of the
good.
plaza would have drive-throughs.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
There are some members of the public here who might have a question of the architect.
Sure.
You want to ask?
Anyone talk to the architect? Yeah. Sir, we need you to come up to the microphone. We need you know the routine. Sorry about that.
Going to all these board meetings. All apologies. Yeah, this is, he did this in 1976.
Sir, if you could just address us.
Sorry, William Keeley. Front here. In any event, this goes back to 1970.
Sir,
Yeah,
we can't pick you up unless you have the mic right up to your thing. And could you just address us if you can?
Okay,
Yeah, thank you.
like I said, I was looking up.
You know what, why don't we pull the one with the,
Yeah, the whole project.
you point to which one you want, we'll put it up for you.
That's fine.
That one's okay?
The whole project here. Yeah. Yeah, just a couple of things. Words gas station, drive-through. I'm happy to see 691, which I was instrumental in. The grocery store. These are all projects before, and I'm not pointing fingers at anyone on the board, that I had presented to the board, various members, which were turned down, especially the drive-throughs. Fast food, had a Subway application for 10 years, things of that nature. What brought a turnaround on this?
I don't understand your question.
Turnaround, grocery store, gas station, drive-throughs, those 3 words.
Well, we have grocery stores in town. We do have drive-throughs in
Yeah.
town. I guess I'm still not understanding your question.
Right, back to the grocery store, there was significant opposition when Stop and Shop went in.
Yes. I believe it was the size of the Stop and Shop. Is that, I wasn't on the board when
Okay,
the Stop and Shop went in.
but you're familiar with all the
Yes.
back and forth on
And
it.
I think it was more where it was too, and I believe it was the size, but I can't speak for it because I wasn't here.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Maybe
No,
Woody
this
was
goes
here, but
back some years
other than
ago.
that, I don't think any of us were here.
Do you anticipate any conflict in those areas? Gas station, drive-through, grocery store?
We haven't heard everything yet.
Yeah.
I think the state has also looked at this for traffic wise. We do have a traffic engineer here, which would, I'm sure there's going to be questions about the drive-throughs and the certain ways that it runs, the parking lots run through there.
Yeah, because when I had it, it was a cutout for an enterprise zone.
So I just want to ask one question. He's here tonight. He's the architect. Do you have any questions for the architect? Because we are going to hear from the the traffic study, and there might be a couple other ones. So those questions we could probably give to the traffic study.
Okay, those were done before. I don't know.
Okay.
Times change, people change,
Yeah, but right now I'm just asking for questions on the architect, any of the
Okay.
architect
Okay.
of the
On
buildings.
whys and the wherefores that you may anticipate in those three areas or opposition to them. That's my question.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
can we hear from the traffic engineer
Okay,
next,
all
or one of these? I don't care what the order is, but let's save those questions for after we've heard that. That's why we asked if there's any architectural questions that you might have. You could do now.
Let me, I don't know if you want this turned
Is there anyone else from the public that has architectural questions? No? Okay. So like I said, let's play it by ear. If we have questions for the next public hearing.
That's fine.
We have another one from Mr. Selmont.
Real quick, this application, is this for the main one? The pad sites out front are not part of this permit?
No, they are.
Okay.
The whole, everything on,
Whole
the
property.
whole strip, everything on lot 5 and lot 6 is part of this application.
Oh, I see here. So tenants, proposed tenants 17, 16, 15, 14, 13. Okay.
And the standalone buildings with the possible drive-throughs, that all looks the same and feels like the rest?
Architecturally?
Yeah.
So although we haven't addressed those, the standalone buildings yet, a lot, it depends on who the operator is. Sometimes they come in and they have a prototype they want to use. But of course, the town has the ability to review that and
They'll come in
make
and-
modifications.
on their
So,
own.
but we'll work with them and we'll try to get them to be in tune with the design that we've come up with for the rest of the center. So
They'll come in on their own little permits for each of those buildings?
No. Anthony, do you want to?
Not really. That, these will be, be up to the developer to work with those franchise that have their own trade dress, but it will be compatible with this and consistent with this.
I think we're in a situation now where that's not taking place, and they said they would do that. So I'm afraid we'll get,
Where is that?
that doesn't matter at this point, but
So maybe I can make a comment. So they showed you an architectural theme throughout the site based on what Mr. Scott proposed. Now, if they propose something that doesn't meet what you're seeing tonight, let's say the architecture changes and it's a more modern, it's not a farmhouse look, that would be something that would then have to come back to this commission to get a blessing, because you have a very specific setup that's been approved.
who
And then maybe
determines
they-
that? Who determines that it's
You-
outside the realm of this?
You could put that in a condition of approval down the road.
Okay, good.
In the condition of approval determined by this commission or who?
This commission. You could say, here's the architectural design, the themes, the elements, et cetera, based on what's been presented. So if let's say that pad site A, B, or C comes in and it looks substantially different, like I said, it's a completely different, then they can come back for that pad site to get those modifications approved by this commission. You could condition that.
So how would we see it? I mean, would they come to you with the,
They'd come to they'd start with my office, and if the elements is shown
and you would
tonight,
send out an email to us saying this is
this
what the
Well-
architectural looks like for the,
what we would do is, let's just say, like I said, it's substantially different. Let's go with that first. Then I'd say come back. If it even remotely, let's say just minor nuances, staff would then forward it to you to
So
make
we would
sure it's
have, okay.
consistent with your approval. And-
Okay.
And basically, almost like a preliminary, come before the commission and say, is this what we said yes to? If so, okay, that can proceed. If not, that has to come back.
So you'll come up with the verbiage for this to add
Yeah.
that we can, for next meeting?
Look, next,
Yeah,
not tonight.
yeah, exactly.
Yes.
That's good.
I
And I'll work with the applicant to make sure they're comfortable with that.
is that common? That's like the first time, well, we haven't seen much of this before, so.
This is a little different because
Yeah.
this is the master planning process. This is a very specific zoning district, different than what you're used to. That's why. And I'm trying to think of a flexible way to approach.
Mr. Dawson has a question too.
Can I ask you a question? If they're not giving you an as-built, right, and they're giving you a picture, you don't have foundation drawings or anything. I realize that all comes later, but we're talking about approving a picture. There's a lot more things more important than just a picture that actually, we've been working on. We've been working on colors, this, that, I'm not here to make friends. It's quite obvious, but this is, I think that we don't have any workshops. We don't have anything, we can always have a sidebar and, but we don't do that. And then we just vote on things and then you see them go up and, half these applications, I've been going for years and years and years. I used to keep everything. Finally, I said, the building inspector goes, make sure if it's 2x6s, they're 2x6s, and but nobody goes through with an as-built, and I don't even know if anybody in town, our town, is capable. I mean, big projects like this, we should have a consultant helping us, and we should things that we're not probably capable of doing. I'll speak for myself, so I don't want to speak for anybody else. But I mean, these are big projects. You got laymen up here making decisions, and I've just given my opinion. I'm kind of getting at the point now where I've kind of had it anyway. Because this is a big project. Maybe nobody here feels it is. But we should have somebody working with us, and you should too. And when the site goes up, I know we got a building inspector, but I personally think that we should have an engineer go and make sure that everything is done as approved. But then if you take our approvals out, when we vote and all, what's on there, a tape that nobody double checks to make sure that that's what they meant, that's what they said, I mean, a single family house is one thing. It's a good sized project. So I said my piece, maybe food for thought for the board, maybe not, but I mean, we do have a lot of powers that we just seem to let go. And I'm not picking on this project. There's many more too. You go see and you take a ruler out and see it's not where it's supposed to be. Well, I don't want to cause any trouble, I don't want anybody to say, oh, Dawson's a troublemaker, But I just finally got to air it out. I mean, enough is enough, And I don't know if anybody knows what an as-built is, but to me, it's a pretty important thing.
Does an as-built have to be
Mr.
turned in
Dawson.
when this is done?
Mr. Dawson, an as-built is a plan that shows how the project has been built.
Yeah,
You have
Render.
plans here that show the footings of the buildings, the size of the buildings.
yeah,
When building permits are taken out,
yeah, I understand that.
the
Go ahead.
the planner and the building inspector sees that those plans to build the project conform to the approvals that you've granted with respect to the architectural design and the size of the buildings. You're not just approving it based on the picture. There's a lot more to these plans than just the picture.
Yeah, well, where are they?
Well, Mr.
We actually,
Overton showed them, went over
Showing
them,
them on a billboard up there that,
and you have copies of them.
well, whatever.
You
No,
do have your,
I'm not here to argue with you, but I'm here to make a point. And I
well,
know you
you're
don't like
saying
my
we're
point,
not,
and
you're
that's
saying
too
we're
bad.
not giving,
Please don't talk over me. I let you talk,
sorry.
okay? It's rude if I let you go. Now I gotta say. You know, you look at a rendering, you don't know the pitch of the roof. You know, you look at the sign, you don't have anything. You don't know how this retaining wall with a name, you don't know any exact figures of that. Yeah, but where's a architect stamp? And
If I might, sir, you know, this is the conceptual design of the project. This would be the basis for going forward and creating design development drawings and then working drawings. And the working drawings would have to reflect this concept. So
well,
there's a process that we haven't gone through yet, because obviously the project hasn't been approved. So we can't take it too far. We need to kind of go step by step. But the next step would be the development of the project with drawings that are more detailed than this, but would reflect the same design as this.
you're coming
And then the
back.
next step beyond that would be a full set of construction documents that would have stamps on them reflecting the engineer and architecture's stamps, you know, for the state of Connecticut. So there's a process.
Yeah, I know there's a process, but I mean, the same token, you know, we sit up here and take people's word, you know. You say who you are and we don't see credentials. You know.
I didn't mean to cut over you. I just have a
Go
question.
ahead, go ahead.
When they do bring the plans into the building department, I believe they have to check it with you. So that's our,
Yeah,
I mean, so to
that's when
see,
they take out the permit.
well,
Yeah,
that's,
but
those are the plans that are stamped and whatever, that they go to planning and zoning with them, and planning and zoning looks them over.
So, and to Mr. Scott's comment, yeah, but that's when you're at construction, you're gonna have the full details, the framing, et cetera,
I
mechanicals
understand that.
at that level detail. And then usually what happens, myself or Mike Stroll, the zoning officer, we're looking at it for consistency for the approval. So like, for example, like I said earlier about the design here, some of these elements, the materials, we're gonna say, are those shown in the plans? If they're not,
Is that
would
this
say-
page,
yeah.
this page here?
Yeah.
This page
So
here, they
then-
have everything that they.
Yeah, I see that.
and then
So
at
if they're
the,
not
at the,
using those in the regular plan,
at the end of the project, they'll come with an as-built, which we do require both our department and the engineering department. So Merrick Komet, your town engineer, is involved with these construction projects. He looks at the drainage, making sure it's built in accordance with the plans, utilities, et cetera. So there is an oversight now, and now that you have an in-house engineer, it's working. We're not seeing the issues like the single-family home we discussed a few months ago.
All right, but you know, I'm
I
gonna
understand.
quit, but it's like the house on the hill that the water wasn't gonna hit the guy's property, you know, okay? And I don't know if the rest of the board knows about this, but I get all the calls. So there's flooding the property. I went with you and we both saw it. We both agreed, right? And then it's a doggy paddle. The guy is supposed to do it one way and he does it another way. Okay? That's a different project, but I think Mr. Fazone here has to hear, you know, there's two sides to every story, and there's the truth. Thank you.
We can go.
I'm sorry, Lou.
Yeah, I want to just kind of catch up a little bit. So right now, I mean, tonight we have a small portion of this project before us, which is what you've shown us, what Mr. Scott showed us from these documents, correct? The couple of restaurants and some of the items in between, including the grocery store. And you've shown us what they're going to look like, at least the rendering, what they're planned to look like. And I think what was being asked was, we don't have, for example, the fast food restaurants before us. At least we haven't heard about it tonight. We don't have them before us tonight. Is that correct? In terms of-
That's correct.
And I think what was being brought up was, are those buildings going to look like these buildings are being built the same way? And I think that's what we're asking. And I guess we'll know about that when you come before us with that. We can look at and see if they look the same. And if they don't look the same, we don't have to approve them. I think that's the answer.
I don't think you're answering that correct, and Mr. Fazone. Those are in front of us. The ones with
Yeah.
the drive-throughs, those are in front of us now. You just don't have a rendering of what they are because
they'll be compatible with it. This is typical of the rendering and typical of the buildings throughout the site. You have a site plan,
with them on it.
an engineered site plan that shows the size of the buildings, shows the parking lots. And when that building gets built, well, when that building comes in to be built, it will be drawings that meet the building inspector's needs, detailed construction drawings. They'll show the size of the building. It has to be reviewed by the planning office to sign off before the building permit is granted. The building inspector looks at it, and it's got to conform to the site plan.
I think one of the issues that we had up here, the first issue we had was we don't see a rendering of the individual buildings that would house the standalone buildings, the 3 out in front or the 4 out in front. We don't have anything from there. But we asked already, and I think you've already stated that you'll get a look at it first. If it obviously doesn't look like it, it's okay. It's coming back to us. I mean, that's the only question I have. I mean, is it just for approval of the architecture, the design? That's something we can do.
You could.
Okay. So that was the
Something I'd like
original
to talk-
question. What Mr. Dawson was talking about is a little bit different, but I think that was the original question, is we don't have a rendering of the 3, which I kind of understand, because you could have 3 different, obviously standalone buildings, which 3 different franchises might have a different way of, Starbucks does it one way where Dunkin' Donuts does it another way. I'm not saying that those are I don't know what's going to be in there, but I understand that. But as long as we get a chance to, make sure there's not
You basically, you don't want like 3 different.
orange,
Say.
if it happens to be a McDonald's, we want to make sure it's a nice looking McDonald's. If it happens to be a Burger King, I mean, I guess that was just the extent of your question.
Yeah, as long as
We
we
have-
had some input, if it got way out of, didn't follow this look.
You see it in other towns,
It's
like if you go to a
almost
Glastonbury, you see a
20-proof
McDonald's
thing.
that is a little toned down. There's not the huge golden arches, and you don't have the red all over the building. We probably don't want to see that. You guys probably don't want to see that either. But we just want some. I believe we just want some. We want to be able to make sure that doesn't happen.
And you have 2 ways to approach it. Like I said, you have the idea that I gave you, the condition of approval, basically saying there's the design theme, flexible with the applicant. If you go outside, last page, the exterior finish details of what's going on in the exterior of these. Or,
And roof line.
yeah, the extreme would be say, we want drawings showing those 3 buildings. So I'd like to see them in 2 weeks.
Well, we already stated, a couple of us stated up here that we like the rendering of what's in back. We just don't want to see. We want to see it all match and all come together. And I believe that you would want the same thing. The applicant would want the
I
same
understand.
thing.
I just was
It's
saying
just
this is 2
protection.
extremes. So it sounds like you want to work with the applicant, provided the same architecture theme is carried to these buildings.
I don't want to see a rectangle billboard box get thrown up that doesn't fit any. It doesn't have this roof line, different colors. none of that.
On the same idea, I've seen plazas that look beautiful, like this one is very great rendering, and then they have the national franchises, large franchises come in, and they negotiate or demand their design because their construction company is used to outfitting it a certain way. And on the other hand, when those buildings in front match and look great, it really, makes it look classy and matches. Unfortunately, I feel like those national franchises come in and try to cheapen it up a little bit because it's a cookie cutter. We've seen other places in town do that, or try to anyways. So if it's beautiful, just make sure the buildings in front match is the only thing I would say.
Well, I think
And
that
I
the
have a
reference,
question just on when they're built. If they're coming later on, right? Because you don't know what they are. We don't know what the franchises are. Is there pads that are put down when you do all the parking and the full parking's done, and then you just build on those pads, or do you rip up the parking, or is there a partial parking that's going to be there when the main building's built?
They have to do exactly what they're approved for.
Hi, good evening. Paul Bowman, 387 Mount Sanford Road, Cheshire. Could you repeat the question for me, please?
The standalone buildings,
Yes.
the footprint that's in there, because there's all park and everything that goes around it. Is that set in stone? Like when if a franchise comes in, they have to build one in that? Or is that that area where all that parking is gonna be done at like in a second phase?
So-
How do you handle that?
Okay, that's a good question, and I'm not sure I have the answer that you want, but I'll answer to the best of my ability. So we don't have this plaza fully leased. So we have to guess what the marketplace will dictate in size, in scope, and in each of the 4 elevations. We've created a theme. Tom Scott's firm, Scott Griffin, has created a theme that we feel blends into Cheshire very well and something that all of us can be proud of. We have to then find people to move into these spaces, all the spaces. And each, as you know, each tenant may have a unique look that they prefer or as part of their trade dress. So whether you have an Enterprise car location or you have a Chase Bank, they have certain looks that they try to achieve as part of their marketing and recognition. So to answer that, so the outbuildings, we don't know exactly what they're going to look like. They're not going to be larger than what we've shown because we have parking and drive-through lanes and stacking, and a lot of thought went into what we have there. We have interest. We have a lot of interest. But until they know what the requirements are going to be of the approval, no one's really going to move forward, because if a lot of restrictions or demands are imposed, Cheshire isn't the only town where there's opportunity for some of these places to move. And I really don't want to mention any brands tonight because that's not fair, but we've tried to create a project that will enhance that part of town. We came in with a master plan that we're trying to model as well as we can. As you can see, it's tweaked. Lot 7 wasn't exactly what we came up with originally. Same thing with Lot 3. The gas station, convenience store on Lot 1 is, but there's several iterations. Lot 5 is an important component to Cheshire for granulous growth and for our future. We're trying to give Cheshire the best project we can. We do need some flexibility to negotiate. I understand you don't want to see a particular brand where their building is horrible. I understand that, and we're not looking for that either. But to the point that Tom Scott made is that the next step is going to be a design phase where you're really designing for that particular user. They're not going to spend money going to that next step and committing to a lease if it's wide open what the commission's going to want. That's why we tried to come up with something that's unifying and that fits the colonial nature of Cheshire and to have that theme. We're not looking for golden arches or something like that. Not interested in that. And we are talking to some people who will want some unique characteristics, some unique colors, but from my perspective, what I know, they're going to fit into what we're proposing. They may not be as big, maybe they're 2 feet narrow or 3 feet longer or whatever, but they'll fit so they work within the footprint of what we're proposing from a perspective of traffic and public safety.
So the site plan remains the same.
The site plan
There's not going to
remains
be,
the
well,
same.
we're going to change the drive-through to go the other way. All that stuff remains the same. Whether the building is a little bit smaller, I don't think you can do it a little bit bigger, but
We won't do it bigger. We
Yeah,
can't-
you can make it a little smaller. You could do something like that. But as far as the parking and all the drive access ways and everything, nothing changed. Site plan has to be exactly the same.
Correct.
So
And
all the building is really the architecture of the building and colors and other things is really what we're talking about.
Correct. And then the large building, we have several different stores, but maybe someone wants 2 units, so there won't be a demising wall between it, or they'll want half of it. So we have to have some flexibility going forward. Otherwise, it'll never happen.
But that's not going to change the gables and all the other
No,
things.
no, no.
That's
We
all
still-
gonna
we still wanna-
remain.
create that, but we
Size of
don't want to say that's an 8 pitch when things move and it shrinks down. So now it's a 6 or 7 pitch. It's still going to look like a colonial and still fit the parameters that are envisioned by Tom Scott and his team.
you did answer my question about the size of the buildings and the layout. That's what I was wondering, how you do that, if it was going to be like two phases where you do the parking for the main building and you don't do any of the parking or anything, the drive-through areas on the standalone. So you did answer that. So thank you.
Good. Thank you. This is a complicated project, as you can imagine. We have a Town of Cheshire sewer line that comes through the project, and we have to work around that as well. So we really have to almost build everything to make it all work. And that's the trick of this. If we don't get enough mass, it's going to be difficult to move forward with the building. So, we're trying to juggle a bunch of balls, and we think we can make this happen. We wouldn't be here if we didn't, and we're just trying to get to the next step. But to the town planner's point, he'll receive a set of building plans, just like the building department, and there will be 4 elevations in there. And he will have to see what every side of that building looks like. And so I can imagine that if it doesn't fit this theme and the character of what we envision up here, you would probably be the first to know.
That's all we ask. So that's good.
Any other questions for me?
Ms. Downs had a question. I think Mr. Tedesco, then we'll go right back to you, Mr. Dawson. He answered.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Dawson.
I guess the question I have is, when you have the renderings, we have them.
Yes.
This is more or less a sample, not what you're exactly going to do. Is that correct or not?
That's correct. Yes.
And that's the way I will listen to the tape. But I understood that what you see is what we're going to get. And that's why I said, wow, I mean, it wasn't said in that way, but that's what the pictures are for.
So, yes, this is a rendering and a conceptual sketch just to give everyone an idea.
I thought so, but I just wanted to
Sure.
get a little heat going here so that we could get a clear answer, because unfortunately, Paul, I think Mr. Bowman, I'm sorry. That we don't pull those tapes out and listen to them. We rely on people's testimony, and you're a very reputable businessman in town, and I've always had faith in you. Just the way somebody says, that's the way you're going to realize that's not the way. You see the picture, that's what you're going to get, because I think that was misread, because the colors here might be different than there, but I don't think we really have a right to tell you what color put your buildings anyway. And I think, we'd be laughed at if we ever tried to push that,
Yeah.
But do you understand where I was trying to come from?
I do.
Okay.
But I think this will give the general representation. It's the first step.
Representation of it, but that's not what you see is what you're going to get.
Very similar, but like I said, you're not going to, if you look at that and say, well, that's a 9 pitch, and you have a trained eye for that. So you could say that.
Yeah.
It turns out if it gets a little narrower, maybe it goes to a 7.
Yeah.
So, but you'll still have the colonial theme. We'll still create the same thing. I mean, the windows they're an artist rendition. We have to go to a manufacturer to get something similar. So it won't be exact, but it'd be very, very similar.
And I have one more question. What happened to the hotel that was going to go up first and the gas station?
The gas station is next.
No, but
It's the next part of the
But,
public
I
hearing.
can listen, I have to listen to them, but I thought that they would be the first 2 things that would be done before the project got going.
Yeah, that's a good question. The hotel is expected.
You can understand. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay.
Some people get pressure, some planning and zoning don't get questions asked. They're lucky to sit back and they vote. They don't get what I take from the Cheshire people that
Right.
listen, and they'll kind of get the feeling,
Yep.
what I go through. I know you personally, which has nothing to do with this. I know your work. It's always been excellent. And I think I always made pretty decent decisions, except sometimes when I get a little worked up, I might not say the things I would have said normally, you know.
Sure.
But, okay, I'm very clear now.
Okay. So if I could just answer that last question. So the hotel, again, when we go into letters of intent in contracts, these things take time. So for example, with a hotel, they had to wait on corporate to give for a corporate type of hotel to give them approval. So that's what really took probably 3 extra months. They possibly could come in March for their application. So sequentially, the lots maybe didn't happen the way we thought, but we're certainly living in a different world than we were in 2019. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so going back to where I think we're pretty much covered on the architecture thing. I think we beat that horse. Get out of here before it starts snowing. All right. And if we do need you with questions, or maybe it's questions we can email to you and get answered. If not, you know what? You have to come back. That's just the way it's going to be. So, okay, great. Thank you. Mr. Fazone, who do you have next?
Dave Sullivan with traffic.
Good evening, David Sullivan, SLR. I manage the Traffic Transportation Planning Group. We have conducted these supplemental letters for past couple of projects that have come in, Lot 7, Lot 3. With those two particular letters, what we determined was the traffic was essentially the same as what we estimated through the OSTA process and through the master planning process. And in one case, it was actually less units than were originally approved. So it was one type of letter. As we got into Lot 5, we had to do a little deeper dive into this because not only is it a little bit more square footage because we have these additional 2 lots, but the uses have changed slightly, so the balance of uses and things like that. So we took a little bit deeper dive into it. And in the letter that we provided, we kind of give a summary of what was proposed on Lot 5 in the master plan versus what's being proposed now. Essentially, there's not big changes, but there are changes. There's more restaurant. Previously, I think there was somewhere around 15,000+ square feet of restaurant. Now there's going to be about 30,000 square feet of restaurant. The balance between the shopping center or general retail, there was in the supermarket, there was more square footage in the supermarket before and less in the square footage in the retail. Now there's the supermarket is 40,000 square feet, and the general retail and all the other buildings that will have retail is 59,650 square feet. We identify which are the fast food restaurants. There's also urgent care center, which is a use on here that wasn't previously on the Lot 5 estimate we did. And there was a coffee shop in a previous one that's not on this one. So anyway, these uses have changed a little bit, but not dramatically in the gross. But so we said, well, what we need to do is look at each of these uses because some uses generate more traffic than other uses. So we said, let's take each of these uses, see how much traffic they generate, and compare all of the Lot 5 traffic generation. And we did that. And what we determined was there will be a slight increase in traffic. By slight, it's in the morning, 22 trips. That's total in and out. More trips we expect for these new uses. 82 in the afternoon and 67 on Saturday. Now that's just for Lot 5. So we took it a step further and we said, okay, we have some other changes that have taken place. For instance, I talked about Lot 7, where there was 180 units that we had analyzed before. It's approved for 140 units. So We then looked at the whole site and said, how much traffic was generated by the entire master plan and approved by OSTA? And how much traffic do we have here now? Again, slight increase with all these changes put in together. And the morning is almost a wash. It's a +1 trip, believe it or not, with all these changes. In the afternoon, we expect that there'll be about 60 more trips with all the changes that have come before you thus far. And on Saturday, 35 more trips. So plus trips, right? The other change that we have is another driveway. So now we have the right in, right out driveway as Darren described, and it's between the two signals. What we expect is the rights in and rights out. Now they won't take place on the signal. They're going to take place very easily on this mid-block free flow movement. So we think it'll be a positive, but we said, we really should reanalyze this. So we went through the whole process of all the number work that we had done previously, but we did it with the new numbers and the new access, took all the recommendations and the offsite improvements, which are currently under design, and said, if we do the same exact mitigation plan, what's going to happen when we put these new numbers on it? The change is there is no change. We get the same levels of service for all of the intersections in our study area overall. And essentially, even if you broke it down to individual movements, almost all of them are the same. So we did do that. And when you think about it, it really shouldn't be a surprise when I talk about an increase, for instance, on Saturday of 35 trips. There's like 2,000 trips that would be generated by this whole development on a Saturday peak hour. So there's a lot of trips, small difference, reanalyzed, no changes in the mitigation, no changes in the impact. Our next step along the way here is to take all of this, package it how OSTA would like it, the Office of State Traffic Administration, package it up for them and say, here's our changes. We'd like to modify our approvals for these new uses. And that is in the works now and will take place very shortly. So that's the, I guess, not so short version of what we've done and what's in our report that you have. So I'd be happy to answer any questions or drill down on anything if there's specific questions. Yes.
Mrs. Downs.
So how many, if you're coming from I'm just having to deal with this based on places I know, Sam the Clam down at the bottom, do you know what I'm talking about? At the, there's what?
North side.
North side. So the houses that are getting knocked down or whatever, where is that in relation to this? How many from that intersection down there up to the light for 691, how many turn-ins are there going to be where there's no light? Or is there only going to be one light as you come off 691 and then no other light down to
So there'll be, in terms of accessing the site, and this takes, not talking about the rear access on Dickerman for the residential.
Yeah, I'm
that's
just
on
talking
that
about
site.
Route 10. I'm
So
trying
just-
to understand it and picture it in my mind. How
So
many
if you're traveling westbound,
westbound would
so
be?
coming from Meriden on 691.
Well, just help me out if I'm going northbound.
If you're going northbound, okay,
Yeah, and I get to 691.
okay. So
What happens
when you
between
get to
there and
when you get to the
Santa Clara?
second light at 691,
Second light
the second light on 691, so the first light
is what exists.
exists for the eastbound traffic. So you're driving north.
Yeah,
Let's start at Johnson, East and West Johnson. You pass the East and West Johnson.
Yep.
The next light you come to are the ramps that if you're coming from Waterbury or you're
still,
coming,
that's what's there.
it's what's there. Then you go across the bridge and you come to the next light. At that light is the first driveway to this development. So
And there'll be a
instead-
left.
There'll be a left.
A
There'll be a
left,
left turn
green.
there. There'll be an additional lane coming southbound there. And there's also going to be an additional lane coming off of 691. So right now, there's two
Additional
lanes
lane
there.
coming off 691?
Right, so there's 2 lanes today. There'll be 3 lanes, and that's being designed now. And that entire signal will be new and modernized and improved.
Well, so if there's 3, you go left, you go straight, you go right up
Correct.
there?
Correct. And then if you keep going north,
Yeah.
on your left side, will be a driveway that you can't use if you're going northbound. But if you're coming southbound, you could use it. So there's no light there. But if you're coming southbound, you can take a right in. And if you're leaving, you could take a right out. So there's no left turns there. Number one, because there's no signal. And number 2, we just wanted to put the movements there that were easy to make and wouldn't cause trouble for the rest of Route 10 there. And then if you keep going, you go past the driveway to the commuter lot.
Yeah.
And then a little further up, there's going to be another new signal, and that signal will be only for the shopping center on the left side. So it'll be a new signal with a driveway coming off from the shopping center, and north and south would have to stop. And
So
then,
there's 2 new complete lights going in.
well, one is completely new, but it's in a location where there's already a light. And the second one further north is completely new at a location where there's nothing now. And then if you keep going, then you get to the existing light
Existing light.
again. So
Which is going to change too.
That will also change as part of.
Not as part of this project, but that's also in the works to be changed.
That's a DOT project in
Yeah.
Southington.
Bridge is going away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's out of our jurisdiction.
The light on the north end, is the right-hand lane going to be straight through, or is it full stop, full into there?
northbound? Northbound, there'll be a left turn lane and a through lane.
Through lane always open, or is it
No.
gonna be locked?
No, it'll be a light there. And so when you're coming out of the shopping center, you would get the red there.
Any other questions, commissioners?
Okay for the moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
One of the requirements of the special development project is the impact study. And Don Poland, who's been here before, was here with respect to Lot 3. Will go over the impact of this project.
Good evening, Chair, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Donald Poland. I'm with the firm of Goman York Property Advisors. We're based at 111 Founders Plaza, East Hartford, Connecticut. Just to provide a little background, I believe I was first here before you guys in June of 2019, discussing kind of in a broad overview the real estate asset classes that were being proposed as part of this mixed-use development. Since then, in 2021, we did a comprehensive analysis, the municipal fiscal impacts of this development. And since then, I was back here for the fiscal impacts on the Phase 1 residential, also on the Phase 2 apartment residentials last fall. And now I'm happy to be here before you on the commercial, not discussing school-aged children. So being that it's commercial, it's much more straightforward from a fiscal impact perspective because it doesn't have that educational component to it. It's just general government services. So we reassessed the prior studies that we did. We took a look again at the marketplace and recalculated our numbers for the 136,000 square feet being proposed here. Essentially what we come up with is an appraised value of about $20 million on the plaza. And that works out to an assessed value of around $14 million. And that works out to about $488,000 per year in taxes that we estimate. The C-store, which I know is part of your other application, it's included in this report. And that comes out to about $33,000 a year in taxes. So combined about $520,000 in taxes. Based on some research that's been done by the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, a study that was issued in 2012, we estimate that about 27% of taxes generated go towards actual government services for commercial and industrial uses. So therefore, out of that $520,000 in taxes, we estimate that $140,000 will go towards paying government services, police, fire, public works, all of that stuff. So you end up with essentially a net positive of about $380,000 in real property taxes. In addition, this development part of this approval process that's going through right now, and then the building permitting process and so forth, will generate one-time development fees, that's permitting fees of approximately $210,000. On the economic impact side, we estimate 40 full-time equivalent construction jobs. Permanent jobs for the retail uses, the mix of retail uses runs probably around 429 jobs. 127 are probably full-time, 302 part-time, and with a wealth creation of approximately $11.7 million in wages being paid overall. The report itself gives a detailed breakout of the kinds of jobs, the wages associated with those jobs. So with that said, you have, this phase of the development that is very much fiscally positive. And so far, even with those other residential components, everything that's come through so far has been fiscally positive, and we'd expect it to continue that moving forward. So with that said, Chairman, I'm available for questions if anyone has them.
Anyone questions? Mr. Soma.
Looking at this project, this is the money side of the whole property there. Taking into account the residential that's been approved, Stonebridge, the one up by Dickerman, this other one we've approved, the apartments, and now this one. What impact to police and fire is this going to make, as far as like nuts and bolts? How many more cops do you need? How many more firemen do you need, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
To be honest with you, and you probably won't like my answer, to be honest with you, you will most likely absorb this development, the master plan in its entirety, without noticeable impacts to staffing levels of municipal government services. It feels like a lot, but at the end of the day, it's not a lot. Maybe if you put loss management into it on the retail, maybe some measurable increase in police calls to the site. But when you're talking fire with sprinklered buildings, especially on the the residential components and so forth, I just wouldn't anticipate a lot. So, and that's I'll be honest with you, that's one of the toughest things with doing these fiscal impact statements. And I talk about on the residential side, we all think $19,000 a year per student, but you don't add a new teacher every time there's a new student. You don't add a superintendent. Your utility costs don't change regardless of the number of enrollments and so forth. So it's those incremental and marginal costs. And at the end of the day, in your tax collector's office, they'll be absorbed in. And in the most part for your fire department, the development will be absorbed in. So I don't think you're going to see substantial changes.
You're right. I didn't really like your answer, but
Yeah.
that's
I could see the look on your face.
C'est la vie,
Can I just say I don't really like that answer either. It seems very cavalier. To be honest, I'm just telling you, it seems very cavalier that you think something this big. This is the biggest thing coming. I mean, we're talking about how big it is, and
It's big.
Big. So I think you're being cavalier to say, well, have no effect on the town services, that a volunteer fire department and all of those things where we're having trouble staffing things as they are. So
I'm not trying to be
I don't want to
cavalier.
argue with you, but
No.
feel like it will impact, we just don't know it.
And I'm not trying to be cavalier with you, and I'm sorry if I come off that way. I'm leaning on my 30 years of experience. I was in municipal government. I sat in that position there in the municipality. I did zoning enforcement. I've been on all sides of these developments in various capacities. In other communities, I sit as a consultant to the community when developments like this are coming in. And when I lean on my experience, you know, in its pieces, in its totality, it feels real big. In its pieces and parts, it's not very big. So when I was in East Windsor as planner, we wrote our first open space subdivision. 11 lot subdivision comes in, commission approves it, gets built. They hate it. They're screaming at me to repeal the regulation. And my response to them was, come on, guys, you have 4,300 housing units and you just got upset over 11. Like, let's go do a site walk. Let's figure out what's not working. And let's do this. My point being, in the totality of your community as a whole, yes, this development's big, but it's not tipping the scales on the services that you're already providing. So I'm not saying you're not going to have any impact, but I think in general, the development will mostly be absorbed without feeling it. More important, the taxes that are going to be generated by the development would definitely cover an additional police officer or additional staffing with, you know, the ambulance service or what it may be. I see in no ways that this development is going to burden the community. It's positively generating fiscal revenue that would more than cover any services that need to be, you know, extended to it. And we're accounting for that. I mean, the 140 grand in services is accounting for that.
Do you know if the police and the fire department, the chiefs have been brought in? Like, do they, I don't know how we calculate how many officers we need. Is it per people, per homes, per businesses? Same with the fire department. I remember the old plan that was here, there was talk of you have to have a north end station. Where did that go? Is that still around? Is that, and how does that, not that has anything to do with the vote on this, but I'm just wondering if we're going to have to do that.
So I can't speak for the police, but I can say that, you know, my past experience in other communities, yes, there's a formula they use to determine their staffing requirements based on number of households, square footage, et cetera, like of square footage of either commercial, industrial space. There is a proven formula that Chief Dreif would use budget times. That's usually when that number comes out. For the fire aspect, yes, they've been part of this conversation. But also remember, you have a house in Southington that's actually full-time staff, which we have a mutual aid agreement with the town of Southington. So should there be any sort of drain where the closest house serving this would be Byram Road, they had any issues, which the chief said, listen, for them to get from Byram Road to the site, they're hopping on 691. It's a quick drive. It's not like they're coming up Route 10. They still can serve this area. If it got to the point where it was a burden or they, for whatever, it was a significant event, Southington would be coming to assist them on that, which would normally, like I said, with the mutual aid agreement. So I think that, you know, from the fire aspect, I mean, obviously, long-term, that's what they have to plan for, they have to look at, but they also have sort of those other things, such as these mutual aid agreements would supplement these sort of areas. Does that answer?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Tasco.
Yeah, I agree with that, I guess, until the fire department says, well, we've got this new project now, we need another truck worth $500,000. I mean, that could happen. But anyway, and with respect to the police officer, I was actually here, Woody was also, I believe we were only two, when we had the shops at Cheshire and the outlets at Cheshire, which was going to go on the same property. And we had the police chief in and talking, and I think what he said at that point, I'm remembering back 15 years, and I've gained a lot of years and lost a lot of brain cells since then, but I think what he told us was that he thought he would go for one extra officer. And that was really a bigger project in terms of commercial needs, if I remember correctly. I mean, there were more shops and more things, but I remember the chief that was in at that time said he thought he would try to ask for one more police officer because of the anticipated different needs. But to come back, sir, you had said, I mean, it seems to me that you've accounted for some of these things in that you just mentioned that $140,000. And so what we should be questioning, or could be questioning, I think, is how did you compute that $140,000? What are your assumptions? And what was your basis for saying 140 instead of 340?
Yeah, so it was the study I made reference to by Connecticut Conference for Municipalities. It was issued in 2012. They took a look at the cost of government services to commercial industrial uses in municipalities in Connecticut, a select number of municipalities. And basically the finding of the study said that for every dollar of taxes that commercial industrial use pays, only 27 are $27 are allocated. 27 cents are allocated for government services, that the remaining 73 are actually kind of net profit. That because of the lack of government, the lack of educational services going to, commercial industrial, that they pay much more in taxes than the services they ultimately require. So over the years, I've used that as a starting point. And then I do things where I go through your budget and I look at your grand list. I look at the percent of your grand list that's coming from commercial industrial. I look at the various kind of services that you have, recognizing that it's not just education, things like senior services, parks and recreation, all those departments and so forth aren't servicing the business community, the commercial community, and so forth. So I do that analysis and then I determine whether or not I think the 27 cents on the dollar that CCM found is applicable here. In some communities, I adjusted. I recently did one where I bumped it to 35 rather than 27. I kept it at 27 here. I felt it was a reasonable number to provide that reasonable impact and so forth. But then once again, it's, I have a footnote in the report that kind of talks about it. On the, let's say the 300 units of apartments. So that's 300. That's one more real estate property tax file, right? And then it's probably 450 automobile accounts. That sounds like a lot, but it's really not. And most likely it'll be absorbed into the assessor's office and the tax collector's office with creating no additional need. And you can play that out time and time again. You'd need a much more substantial development with much more substantial, impacts to start really generating those differences on a town agency by town agency basis.
That's helpful in terms of understanding how you came up with that. I mean, it seems to me that we have this $380,000 quote profit to work with, I guess, right? I mean, if you're way off, you're only, it's twice as expensive as you thought. It still isn't going to cost more than this is going to generate in taxes. I mean, that's what.
Yeah.
Say.
Yeah. And there's a statement in the report. I mean, generally, it's basically assumed across municipal government in Connecticut that commercial development, commercial industrial is a net positive. That, it pays more taxes than the services that are rendered to it. That's kind of, I could say is almost a truth that almost everyone agrees upon that. Therefore, I don't see a scenario on this where it actually becomes a fiscal negative. So yeah, you could say multiply the 140 times 2, that's 280. You're still coming in above that.
And these are based on general principles of costs that have been developed, I guess, over the years by people looking at different kinds of. This is kind of the same thing as happens with the traffic studies. The traffic studies say that a certain kind of development will have a certain amount of traffic, and you're saying a certain kind of development will generate a certain number of costs. And these are standard numbers, and if the standard numbers are right, then great. And if the standard numbers are wrong, then we're all going to be sorry someday, I guess, right? But
yeah, and I mean, just on my own credentials, going back in the 1990s, early in my career, I was part of a firm. We did a comprehensive municipal fiscal impact analysis for the Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments, looking at all their municipalities. There was like 14 or something, and taking a look at land uses and, studying, how do the taxes affect each of the land use, agriculture, residential, single family, residential, multifamily, so forth and so on, commercial, industrial. So this is something that I've been doing over the course of my career, is kind of taking a look at the fiscal impacts of development itself. There's a huge body of academic research that's come out of Rutgers around it and so forth. So yeah, there's solid numbers out there. I trust the CCM studies and the other studies I've read and that I use to base my methodologies on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
If there were any TIFs or tax abatements or anything special that we gave for this development, was that included in that?
This development, and Paul can correct me if I'm wrong, this development did get a tax a credit enhancement agreement from the town council. It has a huge threshold that is, and I don't remember the specifics, but it has a threshold of taxes being, grand list value being generated from this development before they actually get the abatement. And right now, the development's nowhere near it. It's going to need to get to probably about 80% completion, and that's why it's not accounted for in this study at this time. If this thing's built, say in a year and a half to 2 years, it'll be paying full taxes. At some point, that will adjust based on that credit enhancement agreement.
Any other questions, commissioners? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mr. Fazone, any more?
Not really. Probably a good point to break.
Yeah. Though I'm going to go to the public, but I don't think there's any public here. So, break, you mean you're done with all you've given us all your
And there's probably some things we'll need to bring up next time, but you said you were going to keep it open.
It's definitely going to be held open. There's a lot of stuff to get in one night. If you do have some other stuff, that would be great. I'm also going to go to the public a little bit quicker because if there is any public here next time, but I will go a little bit quicker. So we actually have to do
The
3, 4, and
gas
5.
station.
What's that? We have to do 3, 4, and 5, the gas station.
Right.
So are you prepared to
We
switch
are.
this? Okay.
Yep.
So now I want to open up 3. Can we hear 3, 4, and 5, please, for the gas station?
Application for approval of interstate special development project on behalf of Route 10 Fuel and Market Incorporated. Applicant, TriStar Development LLC and Miller Napolitano Wolf LLC owners. Applicant is requesting an approval of interchange special development project for gas station with convenience store and drive-through located at 1953 Highland Ave, Assessors Map 4, Lot 13, Zone ICSDD. 4, application for a special permit on behalf of Route 10 Fuel and Market Incorporated. Applicant, TriStar Development LLC and Miller Napolitano Wolf LLC owners. Applicant is requesting special permit pursuant to Section 50 and 45B5 of zoning regulations for gas station with convenience store and drive-through located at 1953 Highland Ave. Assessors Map 4, Lot 13, Zone ICSDD. 5, application for earth removal, filling, or regrading permit on behalf of Route 10 Fuel and Market Incorporated. Applicant, TriStar Development LLC and Miller Napolitano Wolf LLC owners. Applicant is requesting permit pursuant to Section 25 of the zoning regulations for earth removal, filling, or regrading for the property located at 1953 Highland Ave, Assessors Map 4, Lot 13, zoned ICSDD.
For the record, my name is Anthony Fazone. I'm an attorney here in Cheshire with the law firm of Fazone, Ryan, and Ricciuti, representing the applicant. Again, similar to the previous application, this is a specific application on Lot 1 of Stonebridge Crossing subdivision for a special development project, proposing a gas station with a convenience store. Basically meets the conditions, the specific and special regulations applicable to the Interchange Special Development District, of which Lot 1 is a part. I would ask again, for the same reasons as the previous application, that the commission take official notice of the file where the property was changed to Interchange Special Development District. We do have a portion of this property that is located over the North Cheshire Aquifer, Central Connecticut Regional Water Authority Aquifer. None of the aspects of the gas station are located over the aquifer, but because of the presence of the aquifer on the site, we've notified the Regional Water Authority and also notified the Department of Public Health. We have introduced and filed today copies of the notifications that were sent certified mail with the certified mail receipts to the Regional Water Authority. The Regional Water Authority has responded with a letter today, and that's part of the file. They acknowledge that there are no prohibited practices or regulated activities over the aquifer, and therefore a permit is not required. There are no wetlands anywhere near or on this property, and therefore a wetlands application has not been filed. With that, I will ask Darren Overton to come up and go over the site plan.
Good evening again. For the record, Darren Overton from SLR Consulting, a licensed professional engineer in the state of Connecticut. Go through a similar progression as the last presentation. Again, the master plan here, north is straight up on the page with Route 10 over here on the right side or eastern part of the site. We're talking about Lot 1, which is down here in this southeastern quadrant. We have Route 10 to the east. We have the proposed subdivision road, Stonebridge Court to the north, 691 to the south, and then Lot 2 is over to the west, which is planned for the hotel site. So we had a configuration here with a convenience store in the middle, a looping drive around, gas canopies in front on the north side. And a lot of that was driven, as Mr. Fazzone had mentioned, by the fact that we have an aquifer protection zone along the Route 10 frontage on the eastern part of the site. So as part of that, some of the discussions we had with the Regional Water Authority, recognizing that they have authority over that, oh boy, aquifer protection zone. Got too many of these piled up here. It kind of dictates what we can do when with this parcel, particularly with the major aspects of it. So again, this is existing conditions. This shows here I've turned north to the right 90 degrees so that north is facing to the right of the page. Route 10 is on the bottom and 691 is over here towards me on the left side. This is Lot 1. You can see it is a somewhat wooded parcel. It's a little deceiving on the aerial because there isn't really much in the way of mature woods on it. It's all kind of an overgrowth of shrub. This was a parcel that had been previously disturbed as part of the 691 development. When that was finished, making the connection out to 84, I believe that was in the late 80s. So this is kind of a regression of that starting to grow back. Some of it's been impacted and cleared as part of the roadway construction. But we're going to clear the rest of this and develop the proposed convenience store on this. So moving to the layout plan, which gets me back to where I was going with the Regional Water Authority. Again, north is to the right. I'm sorry, on this one, north is straight up on this plan. So similar layout as you saw in the master plan. We've got an access drive on the western side. We've got a loop access drive coming around it. The convenience store itself and main building is located kind of on the southern portion of the site with the gas canopy on the north side. And then one addition we have is we have also a diesel canopy over here on the west side. You can see this heavy dashed kind of gray line here. That's the aquifer protection line. What's important about that is our agreement with the Regional Water Authority was that and as part of the aquifer protection that's guided by the state deep, don't put the gas canopy within the aquifer protection zone. Don't put your storage tanks, which is these outlined here, diesel canopy as well, all located outside of that aquifer protection area. And only a portion of the building and the parking itself is within that aquifer protection zone. So it follows the same concept as the master plan. We now have actual real architecture of defining the size of the building. And we have, you know, a real operator that's going to operate this facility and use it for the long term. So now that we have some of the details of that, we've laid out the plan in detail. Again, it's similar to the master plan, but we have more detail at this point. And in that, it's a 4,725 square foot building. There is a second tenant that's planned in a smaller space on the eastern side of the building.
That's total for both sections of the.
Total for both sections, 4,725 square feet. So there is a second small tenant that's expected to go in there to complement the convenience store use. We have the gas canopy, diesel pumps, as I mentioned. We looked at the parking, again, following the retail regulation. For this particular use, we looked at one space per 250 for the gas station and convenience store use. So we calculated that we needed, based on the retail space that's anticipated for the convenience store, about 10 spaces. We also broke it down to a potential that second tenant being potentially a coffee shop, and we computed 8 spaces there. And then as part of that, if you have a coffee shop use, you have other space besides the actual retail use in it. And we calculated, total parking spaces that we need there is 25. The operator wants to have more spaces, so we have shown 35. And part of that is we've shown, I believe it's 6 EV spaces on there. So we have a mix of parking. Once we get over the 25 spaces, we need 1 per 25 for accessible spaces. So we show 2 conveniently right at the front door of the building. So we believe we have a mix of parking spaces in excess of what's required. We're anticipating the second tenant use would be a drive-through. We have a drive-through that wraps around the northern side of the site, down on the 691 side, and we have the window located on the eastern side of the building, which creates some maximum stacking. We also have what's a painted island here and a bypass lane, so somebody's in that stack and changes their mind, they can easily exit out. Circulation is relatively simple. Full access drive here off of Stonebridge Court. It lines up with the access drive into the Lot 5 retail, that driveway lines up with the front of the large retail building. Some people might want to move back and forth between these 2 parcels, get gas, go back to the other side for retail. So we've lined up those driveways. And then we have an exit, which is a right turn out only here. That accommodates the circulation for up to the size of a highway trailer, tractor trailer truck. Easy circulation to come in here, loop through the driveway. They can access the diesel pumps easily here, continue around through a separate bypass lane, completely separate from the drive-through itself. You can see there's generous width there for the truck to maneuver without having any impact with any of the cars in the bypass, in the stack for the drive-through or the bypass lane. Easy to route out and come out onto and enter either of the 3 lanes proposed on Stonebridge Court, which has a right turn lane, designated right turn, designated left turn, and then a straight through lane as if you're going across onto the 691 westbound ramp. So we've worked with the operator to lay this out according to their standards. We have also, it was important to them to dress up the site and to have landscaping, particularly street trees along the Route 10 frontage and then along the Stonebridge Drive, Stonebridge Court frontage as well. Our landscape architects have looked at that basically as we always do, a mix of native species. We have some red maple proposed, red bud and flowering dogwood. We've also mixed that in with some shrubs, chokeberry, holly, and also some fountain grasses to break up the heights, different heights and some different interest as far as the landscaping out here. This is going to be served internally by public water and sewer down to the pump station that's proposed for the project. We're working with the fire department. We recognize we have comments from them. We have proposed hydrants and the circulation to accommodate the fire trucks through the site. They had some comments regarding canopy heights, which we will also coordinate to make sure that the fire trucks can get under those without any issue. I believe that's not going to be a problem because those canopies are going to be able to pass tractor trailers under them. The stormwater management, again, similar approach as we've done for the rest of the development. We provide for the water quality management. On this particular application, because it's a gas station use where we may have an opportunity for higher level of contaminants on the pavement, we actually have hooded catch basins so that we can trap any sort of spills or any sort of floatables right at individual catch basins. There's also a hydrodynamic separator that will again separate debris and floatables in it. Then we have an isolator row in our underground. We have underground stormwater management in the northwest corner, kind of near that western access of the property. It's under the pavement. There's an isolator row there to trap sediment. And then that is an open bottom type of structure. Again, we have very highly permeable soils on this site. We've done some test pits out there to verify that we don't have ledge or groundwater issues, and we're leaving that open bottom to promote infiltration into the ground, which we haven't necessarily considered as part of the design. This site is relatively simple for the erosion and sediment control. It's a 2.3 acre site. It's with only 1.7 acres of disturbance. It's relatively flat. We have about a 12-foot grade change existing across the site. Highest point is out towards 691, where there's a little bit of a ridge there from the 691 cut when that was constructed. And we're going to flatten that out a little bit more as part of accommodating the proposed development. And we only have about 1.7 acres of disturbance. So essentially, majority of the erosion controls can just be handled by simple silt fence and hay bales. We do have a temporary sediment trap that's also proposed in the low area in that western part of the site. So pretty straightforward as far as the erosion and sediment control design, and also for the stormwater management, other than we have the addition of the hoods. Now, we had originally shown the hoods on the plans that were submitted only in the catch basins that were draining areas from the fueling areas. The town engineer has asked us to put them in all the catch basins, even the ones on the eastern part of the parking lot that won't see runoff from a fueling area. We're certainly willing to do that. Pretty simple add to have a hood in every single catch basin. So as far as the engineering design, that is a complete summary of what I had to present tonight. If you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Where's the location for filling of the tanks, right on top of the storage tanks? Like where would the truck park to fill?
Yeah, so the truck would pull in this western entrance and pull right up, and they would park right next to this. It's not clear yet. It'll be defined on the construction plans, whether the tank fills are on the east side or west side. Had some interesting conversations with the future operator as to which side they actually dump the fuel from. And it's my understanding that there are different trucks. I think most of them dump on the right side opposite the driver. But there are trucks apparently that drop the other way. He's going to work with his supplier to find out in the final design which side they will go on, but the truck will drive up and park here. It will, when it's filling the tanks, will block one lane here to the diesel canopy, but it's going to be there for a short period of time. They're fine with that operation.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Selma. Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Ladies first. We'll Ms. Downs, then we'll go to Mr. Selma.
You guys are torturing me tonight.
Could you just orient me again to where this is in relation to what everything else that's going on? What's on the right? That's Route 10?
So maybe this, I guess, kind of spells it out best. So here is Route 10 running north-south along the bottom of the page. This is the 691, the westbound off-ramp and on-ramp. As you go further north, here's the commuter parking lot.
Right.
So the Lot 5 development is all along this frontage here that we talked about earlier. The Stonebridge Court cul-de-sac comes in directly opposite that ramp. And this proposal is Lot 1, the 2.3 acre parcel that sits right here on the corner between Route 10 and 691.
That's what I thought. So is that sort of that sneaking behind the picture here? So you go in the main entrance?
So if you,
If that's Stonebridge Court and 691's that, so someone that wants to get gas has to go through in there.
yes, so the only access to the site is through Stonebridge Court. So everybody entering to get gas from this property would have to enter the new subdivision road, Stonebridge Court, and circulate towards the western part of it through this full access drive here.
And is that what this is, Stonebridge Court? Or is this in the? This is your main, you're coming into the thing, that's your sign, right? And this is the gas station behind here?
No, I think that's you got.
No, that's the northern entrance to Lot 5.
Okay, so, okay.
So I'll put the older master plan up. So Stonebridge Court here, this I've twisted around again. North is straight up. So 691 at the bottom. Route 10 is on the right side running north-south. Here's the old layout of the Lot 5 retail development. We had always anticipated that northern access drive. So that picture you're looking at is this northern access drive. And then this is Stonebridge Court with the convenience store Lot 1 right here.
With the light
With the, yes, so there's an existing signal there.
already there.
DOT is doing some upgrades to it now that they've been doing all along Route 10. As part of this project, there will be further upgrades to add signals coming into the signal heads facing the new subdivision drive and other upgrades that are being done. And then as Dave mentioned earlier on the Lot 5 application, we have that northern drive. There's nothing there now. There's no driveway intersection. There's no signal. We'll be building a new driveway access and a new signalized intersection there.
Darren, is that like a patio that runs around all the way on the west side and the north side?
So on the north side, we have a fairly wide sidewalk in the front there to be able to accommodate the ramp and to be able to move around that and open the doors. There is a patio seating area over here that is planned as part of the project on the west side, yes.
For a convenience store, like a patio sitting area?
Yes.
Okay. And it's a coffee shop going in there?
We don't know for sure. That's it's a relatively small space, so there aren't many options to go in there. I think that's probably the most likely thing that may go in there. Could be a smoothie shop. Could be some sort of retail type of use that would complement the convenience store that doesn't require a lot of space. We're not proposing a large building here.
Could you walk in there too? Is it just drive through, or could you walk in?
I believe you could walk in as well. Yes, it will be accessed, I believe, through the convenience store. It may have its own separate entrance as well.
Okay. And there'll be a divider in the actual store?
There will be some sort of, probably better answered by the architect than me.
Oh, true. Yeah. So yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Overton?
Just everything looks good. If I'm reading this right, the sewer drains all connect and go through a pretty sophisticated looking underground water quality system 100 storm tech, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's some kind of, is that because of the potential for gas and everything else, or is that, what exactly is that?
Those are just underground chambers, just like concrete galleys are probably the simplest version of it. These are plastic chambers, so they're just meant to store the water quality volume that we calculate through the DEP stormwater manual. And then because we have, good soils for infiltration, we have left them open bottom so the water can infiltrate.
It's a giant septic system. without,
So it's
without
like a
waste.
leaching field for stormwater, yes.
Yeah, okay. Cool, thank you.
So if there aren't any further questions for me, I'd like to have Matt Whitmer, who is the project architect from Phase Zero, come up and present the architecture and answer some of your remaining questions. Thank you.
Thanks.
So good evening. Thank you. For the record, my name is Matt Whitmer from Phase Zero Design Architects out of Simsbury. We're a retail and commercial architecture firm, and we've done a great number of C-stores, so we're certainly not new to this. Very interesting design here, good opportunity. It's kind of an interesting site because, as Darren had mentioned, the side that actually has the drive-through is what faces Route 10. So that's actually your primary elevation as you're driving by. I'm here to just go through the architecture, and I'll be brief because I think Darren took most of my thunder. But I will let you know this is not an architectural rendering, if you will. I mean, it's certainly what we're proposing here is what has been designed and what you'll see ultimately. It's not a concept design. It is a co-tenanted C-store, as Darren had mentioned, meaning it has two entrances on the primary facade. The building is about 100 feet long and about 50 feet deep. It does have, space for coolers and freezers and storage, as well as restrooms. And it will probably be a C-store / deli and potentially a coffee shop as the co-tenanted. The co-tenant will use the drive-through as well. This is the side here that you would see off of, or rather from Route 10. I have the elevations that are part of your package, and I also have a few renderings that I'll walk you through as well, which I don't think you have as part of your package. Building is 30 feet high to the main peak. It is a architectural shingle roof that you see here. It is hardy plank and then cementitious hardy plank trim around the windows. It is a dark colored storefront. And then we have a continuous water table around the building, which is a cultured stone product. We did try to bring some windows around all sides of the building, realizing that you're going to see some of the back from Route 10, which is, of course, this elevation, this being primarily from Route 10. The side, which is primarily the front door, if you will, on Route 10. And then, of course, this elevation right here, which is from inside the parking lot and the Stonebridge Court that Darren had mentioned. I will go through some of these renderings real quick with you folks, and then can answer any questions. This is the primary elevation that you would see from the intersection. So you can see the C-store itself, the drive-through at this end. This is the main fueling canopy, and this is the diesel canopy in the back, just to orient yourself. This is, again, inside, looking at the C-store. There's some outdoor dining potentially with some umbrella tables. We do have a landscape buffer there, which you'll see. The diesel canopy is over here, and the fuel canopy would be in front. And just to kind of bring that all together, this is the view off of Route 10, if you will, as you're driving by. So you can see the fuel canopy with the pumps, the diesel canopy in the back, and then the primary side facade, which would have the drive-through. We're doing very little in terms of signage on the building itself. I understand that there's proposed monument sign that will be out at the intersection, which will have the primary signage, and that's what you'll see. So really, the signage on the building itself will be once you're inside the parking area, be more for wayfinding. So I think that concludes, unless you have any questions. I'm certainly here to answer anything.
Commissioner members, questions?
A few more renderings. Thank you.
No, nobody? Okay, thank you. Looks nice.
Thank you.
Would you like to hear Mr. Sullivan with the traffic?
Oh, for this probably. Is it the same? Yeah. Isn't OSTA, don't they kind of take charge of this anyways, really? I mean, it's
Yeah.
not, yeah, it's,
Last time I said that, you didn't like it.
I didn't like it, but they have to. I mean, that's the way it is. I've learned, I've
Yeah.
grown up.
It's a gas station.
Yeah.
It's going to probably use a lot of the people coming and going from the apartment. Going to be a lot of the traffic, and the site that's there, the commercial site. How is that, Dave? Huh?
It's the same as the master.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you got to come off the 10.
Um, Okay. I would like to ask, since Mr. Poland included the gas station tax revenue, include the Gorman York report into this record also. We did file the regrading and earth removal with a request for a waiver on the grading on abutting properties. In looking at this point in time and at the point of construction, there will be no really abutting properties. They'll be owned by the developer, and it'll be grading up to the street that is in the process of being graded, so that grading will all take place together without any real issue of disparity between the grades that would cause any kind of a hazard. And will all be done continuously and concurrently, rather. So I don't think there's a need for the waiver on item number 9 that we requested. I withdraw that. Again, the same thing. WPCA has done feasibility, final design, allocation of capacity, all with the entire balance of the master plan.
What was item number 9? Sorry, you confused me a little bit. We don't have an item number 9.
No, section 25 of the zoning regulations, 25.59.
I'm sorry.
Which says the grading up against abutting properties.
I was thinking 9 on our agenda.
No, it's
Gotcha.
the waiver request was for 25.59.
So this one, for these applicants, you're not.
I don't think we need it.
Okay. I could actually close these 3. I mean, it's really not a part of it. It's separate, right, from the.
It's a separate application from Lot 5.
Sure, Mr. Ricardo.
In the past, when Mr. Bowman, when this first was brought up, he talked about a real tall sign that I thought might have went on this property, or the one behind. We put up balloons. Is that still going to happen, or not, or what?
Paul Bowman, 387 Mount Sanford Road, Cheshire. So yeah, I remember launching those balloons. They may still be flying. I don't know. But in any event,
Get shot down.
yeah, exactly. They got shot. So this particular sign is not planned for right now for this application. We reserve the right to come before the commission when and if we want to construct that sign for a final approval.
Okay, great. Thank you.
We don't have anything further.
Nothing further. All right. Anyone from the public on these applications? It is a separate application. We have no motion for this. I might leave it open unless you guys have any reason why we have to close it. I mean, we'll just leave it open just to go with the other one, and vote on them both together, because we have no motion for it tonight.
Yeah, that's fine.
You guys are okay with that. It's not like, it's only in a couple weeks. So That's all I have. There's no other comments here. We'll get back to that architect in Boston if we do need to get him, or we'll get to Mike, Mr. Glidden, and he can get back to him if we happen to need him here. So
On
Other
the
than that-
other application.
on the other application, yeah.
Correct.
Other than that, I guess we're good. So
There was a lot of history, a lot to go over.
yeah, yeah.
You guys got a better mind than I got. It's a lot to store.
Actually, I do have another question. On the canopies,
That's my point.
on the
Yeah, it's fair
canopies, is there a possibility that you'll get like a big Sunoco or some branding lit up thing end up on there?
Yeah, I don't think they're lit per se, but yeah, canopies are branded. Yes.
But is it stick up above it, like, big shell, or I'm just using that because it's nice and round? Or
Yeah,
is it
no,
just verbiage on the side.
right. Just verbiage on the side.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the public hearing. Motion by Mr. Solomon, second by Mr. Dawson. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, I'd like to reopen our regular meeting for Monday, February 27th, 2023. Can I get a motion to accept the minutes from our public hearing and regular meeting from February 13th, 2023?
Motion to
Mo-
accept the minutes.
Move Mr. Mercado, seconded by Mr. Selmont.
I like to add, I like the new style with the line numbers on there.
Oh, the meeting minutes? Oh, you like the new, the way it's
The different set of minutes.
way it's formatted?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Any other discussion on the minutes? Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Motion. Okay, so the motion 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Motion carries 501. 824 referral for West Main Street streetscapes. Everyone had that in their pocket. We're gonna give them a thumbs up for it. I mean, is that?
Yeah, I have a motion for you if you're,
Did you have a motion? Anyone want to? Well, let's
You
hear
wanna
the motion.
discuss
Then
it
we
first?
we can. They want to hear the motion. Then we can discuss the motion.
Motion's fine.
Yeah.
okay. Motion to find the referral pursuant to CGS 824 West Main Street Streetscape Improvements Phase 3 Willow Street Corridor is consistent with the goals and objectives of the 2016 Plan of Conservation Development.
Anyone? Move Mr. Mercado, seconded by Ms. Downs. Discussion. We talked about this when, remember, Andy Martelli came to one of our classes. So we talked about that. Kind of goes to nowhere. I mean, for me, but I would never say, I don't know. I thought it was in a weird spot and a lot of money, like a whole heck of a lot of money.
Explain what this is exactly again, just for the.
So, just for the record, the project, well, one, it received steep funding from the state. So we got a grant to put to extend sidewalks along the western side of Willow Street between 31 and West. Sidewalks are intended to create a barrier connectivity to the existing sidewalk network that's out on West Main Street. It'll stop at the end of Bowl and Socket property where they're building the parking lot right now. So the future phases would be going further down this road, but this is just a segment to fill in the gaps.
But they will continue them sidewalks till they're done, right?
In the future, not
Yeah,
part of this
Not
project.
in this specific, but to make sure that they're committed to that.
Yeah, I could talk to Merrick about that, to fill the gaps out to Cornwall then.
Well, it's not
But
that they
that's
have
not-
to be committed. It's not,
It's the other thing too is the, one nuance that they'd have to deal with is right of way, making sure they have the enough right of way to work there. This particular section, they had sufficient right of way, so all the work's in the right of way. They don't have to deal with a private property owner. Once you start getting into where the right of way gets pinched, then you're dealing with other parties, and that can complicate the matters. But
Does it go all the way to the end of their property line, or just does it go to the end of where Sweet Claude's is?
it goes to the end of their property line.
Goes all the way to the
So-
property line.
So the corner by West Main Street will continue the ornamental brick sidewalk sort of setup. And then it'll just be a bituminous sidewalk that goes to the end of this property.
And who is he abutting there?
You're talking, it shows the ball and socket property. That's
Yeah.
the abutting property.
Yeah, isn't there a house at that end and they would have a butter, would be on the south,
No, there'd only be one on the south end.
Yeah.
Because the one would be the road, and then you'd have the trail or the water.
Yeah.
And Route 70. So
Is there a house there or does it go right?
it would go down the end of the property line. There'd be a house or
This-
something there.
It'll end just shy of the property line where the driveway entrance is to the rear of this property. So it will
Okay,
not
so
go-
that's the
it won't-
end.
It won't go right to the, I should correct that, my statement. It won't go in front of this other property's frontage.
In front of their other property frontage, it's only going to be.
It's going to end at their driveway. But like I said, the goal would be is to eventually fill the gaps throughout this neighborhood. So then it would connect this neighborhood entirely out to West Main Street, but also back to Cornwall. Which then, the other thing too is, so eventually, it would be nice to fill the gaps in. That's not what they're asking tonight. They're just asking for the corner.
With brick or just with sidewalks?
Just with sidewalks. And but also just to tie this together is that there's a plan also to improve the trail access to this property. So you're gonna have sidewalk coming down from West Main Street to the frontage along Willow, but you're also there's an old rail spur that used to come into this property.
Right.
That will be improved to connect ball and socket proper to the trail. So, I mean, really, there's a lot of improvements to the pedestrian area around this corner, this segment of West Main Street.
At what point, like a conventional subdivision, were you required to have a sidewalk? Would they be required to finish the sidewalk to the end of their property on Willow Street?
So I mean, honestly, it would be funding. It'd be funding, and like I said, the making sure that they're working within the right of way, so there's no other issues with that.
No. I understand that. I understand this one, but just a regular sidewalk. I mean, if it was a subdivision for homes, they'd be required to put a sidewalk
So
in there.
if it's a subdivision for homes that a new road is proposed, they're required. If it's a subdivision like Ward Lane, and this makes no sense, this is courtesy of recent court cases. If it's a subdivision similar to Ward Lane, meaning you have a piece of property, has a frontage on an existing road, and you carve up 3-4 lots. By law, we can't require a sidewalk in front of those because it's an existing road.
In the past, we have, because I have had them, they've come in and asked for waivers and said,
Right.
if they ever get sidewalks to connect, we will build them.
Yeah, under recent court cases, we can't do that anymore. We
Really?
can do it on a new road. We can't do it along existing road. That's considered an off-site improvements. But that's specific to a subdivision approval. That's not what this is. So,
You'd think it'd be in their best interest to fill
to
the
fill the
finish
gaps.
sidewalk anyways, yeah.
well, it increases the markability once you're creating lots with the new.
So the trail, who maintains the trail? The town or the state?
Who maintains it?
Yeah.
So the town leases it from the state, and we maintain portions of that of certain sections of the trail in that area.
So if Ball and Socket wants to tie into the trail through this little offshoot rail, they pay for that, not the town, correct?
So I don't have the specifics of any deal right there because there's state agencies involved with this. There may be a balance of all the parties. It may not be falling on one party versus the other, but I
The
don't
state
want-
would definitely
It
have
just
to
seems
say
like
something.
There's a lot of town focus to this one little thing.
Anything that came with the trail, because I own portions of property on both sides of the trail, and I was denied access for the trail. So you'd think that
That's
that's up to the state. Whatever.
That's a separate project, a separate activity that's occurring too. But I just wanted.
But
to-
yeah, we're
to
getting off
make
the
it kind of-
topic.
We're kind of,
Yeah. Okay.
So this
So we're
is
just
a
voting
sidewalk.
on the strip of sidewalk
That
that's
is
on Willow
consistent.
Street that goes.
And
okay.
it's grant funded by the state.
Yeah, because that's public safety too. You know, a lot of people walk down there.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Motion carries unanimously. We did number 1, we did number 2. Can't do 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8. New business. Accessory apartments.
Next
That's
meeting,
next meeting, right?
next meeting,
Okay. and then,
advertising for that one.
2, 3, 4, and 5 all pushed out till the 27th.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then just one brief, I have a copy of the cannabis regulations that we discussed at our workshop with the changes. I'm not looking for any input tonight. I promised the commission I'd deliver this for tonight, so I just want you to know that you have copies of it. I'll email it out to those who are not here. So everyone has it.
Number 2, didn't we approve of a shop for them down, you weren't here, I don't think, but closer towards Realty Drive? Are they like scrapping that, and is that what this
They
is?
scrapped it and they're gonna, so now they're
On
gonna do
property.
it, they're gonna do a 10,000 square foot addition for expansion of body work activities that are there. So they'll come before you. They have a very complete set of plans. Staff has met with them, both myself, the town engineer and the fire marshal. So,
Is that Richard Chevrolet?
yes,
Okay, I was wondering, so they just never did anything?
they put
Now they wanna
they put
do
the
it.
property on, the property across the street where they originally gonna do the separate building, et cetera, that was on the market. So they're not pursuing that
Right, I
project.
saw a sign there. That's, yeah.
All right, anything else to come before the commission tonight? No? Okay. I'll entertain no motion to adjourn.
Motion we adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Dawson, seconded by these guys over here. All those in favor? Aye.